All right, man, peace. So I'm sure that many of you brothers out there are aware that over the past week or so, one of the main stories that the mainstream liberal sports media has been trying to disseminate amongst the masses of the people to once again bring them closer into this wokosphere of delusion is that people should take seriously this notion that there's a discrepancy in the difference between the weight room on the men's side of the NCAA tournament as opposed to the women's side of the NCAA tournament. And it's very important, at least most of you brothers I'm sure understand this already, but it's very important that people grasp that when you're not told the truth, all it does is keep you back from true illumination, true edification. Convenient lies are never going to match up to inconvenient truths, because those inconvenient truths, even though they might hurt in the immediacy, they're going to bear greater dividends once we accept them, because it's going to cause us to try to cure those problems that we have once we're told that we actually have them. And one of the main issues amongst many that the modern liberal female has is that she cannot accept the truth. And women in general are not creatures of truth. They're creatures of lies and delusion. And when I say that, I'm not trying to attack the woman. It's just their nature. Women love to be lied to. Their whole life is a lie for the most part. And I'm not just aiming it at the so-called black woman. Western women, period. Their whole life is a lie. They're told that they quote-unquote mature faster than men. They're told that they're smarter than men. They're wearing fake hair, fake eyelashes, 5 layers of makeup on their face, push-up bras, high heels. Their whole life is a lie. So it's very difficult for them to be told the truth in any way, shape, or form, especially since the mainstream liberal media is constantly inundating them with these false notions of equality, without helping them understand that the foundational aspect of any functional society is the man as the head. And that's the bottom line. Anywhere in which quote-unquote equality is being pushed, much less what we're receiving today, which is female supremacy and homosexual/lesbian supremacy, there's going to be nothing but confusion amongst the masses. And if the woman were ever told the truth about herself and where her true purpose is here on the earth, that being a wife and a mother, she would be far happier than she is right now. Because the vast majority of them, despite their protestations against men, and despite their attempts to be quote-unquote revolutionary and seeking out chaos, they're very unhappy with themselves. They need as much assistance as possible, but they're not going to be able to receive it unless and until their will is broken. And that's only going to happen when this society starts to collapse and fall. But once again, just getting back to the point, this silly storyline about the difference or the disparity or discrepancy between how much money was spent on the men's basketball fitness equipment as opposed to the women. We have to understand that the men's basketball NCAA tournament is one of the most lucrative tournaments in all of American sports, if not the most. I'm pretty sure if they were evaluated alongside of the NBA playoffs, it would be very comparable when it comes to how much money they generate just from betting. I'd be willing to bet that there are probably more bettors for the NCAA tournament than there are for the NBA playoffs. I might be wrong about that, but it would not surprise me. That's a multi-billion-dollar endeavor, the men's NCAA basketball tournament. Who's really betting on the women's side other than maybe, gambling addicts, betting junkies, etc.? And who's really watching the women's NCAA tournament other than, school alumni for major women's basketball powerhouses like Tennessee, Notre Dame, Baylor, Connecticut? But who else is really watching that shit? Basically, what women's basketball is equivalent to, what the WNBA is for the professional portion of women's basketball. That being a charity recipient. They receive the revenue that the men generate, but they want to be perceived as equals, which is modern day liberal woman 101. I want to be considered equal to a man, even though I don't put forth anywhere near the work, the effort, nor do I create anywhere near the appeal. And you're going to hear these delusional idiots, some of them willfully delusional, like this person in the middle, Evan Rosenblum, who's basically just trying to keep his job. They're going to recirculate the same nonsense and banter and propaganda that we hear all the time about women's basketball and why it's not popular or as popular as the men's side, that being that they're not getting the same promotion. Well, it's like that question about the chicken or the egg. What comes first, the success or the promotion? I'll just use my little YouTube channel as an example, or anyone else who's on social media. You actually have to build up an audience before sponsors are willing to utilize your channel or your platform or your web page to promote their product. They don't come to you when you only have one follower and say, we're going to invest money in you because we believe in you. That's not how business works. They have to see that you're successful first, and then they're willing to invest in you. But as usual with the woman, supposedly they mature faster than men, but they don't understand basic economics for some strange reason. They don't get that. And that's because the woman by nature is calibrated to understand that the man is the head. So they look at the fact that men's basketball in the NCAAs or the professional ranks with the NBA, they look at the men as people who are supposed to be their sponsors. But they're not willing to reciprocate what their role is because most of them don't know what it's supposed to be. They're so busy trying to be a man, they don't know how to be grateful or thankful to men. But anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back to TMV Sports. My name is Evan, along with Michael J. Babcock. What's up? It's someone who knows a little something about not only professional women's basketball, but also winning the NCAA tournament, Renee Montgomery.
Hello there.
What year did you...
This brought out there looking like little Bow Wow. Bow Wow, wow, yippee-yo, yippee-yay.
You and UConn win the national championship?
2009, 39-0.
One of the best moments of your life?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, amazing.
That damn women's basketball monopoly that Gino Auriemma was running up there. That's probably where she got turned out to lesbianism. A lot of these WNBA bros, they get turned out to lesbianism on the college basketball team or when they get to the pros. That's what happened to Cheryl Swoops, who at one time was a Michael Jordan side chick, allegedly.
Basketball is all over the news today. Everybody's talking about it because of, unfortunately, a negative thing that's going on here. The women's tournament is going on in San Antonio while the men are competing in Indianapolis. And if you've seen these images, this is what the men's gym looks like for teams to work out on.
Now, brother, just looking at this in-house gym, this probably costs somewhere near along the lines of how much money the women's NCAA tournament will generate for the entirety of its duration. Like, just looking at this gym, and this is just a portion of the gym that they're showing, I'm pretty sure that the overall price for the amount of equipment that we see here is probably somewhere in the low seven figures, like 1.2, 1.3 million, somewhere around there, depending on how large the room is. For the most part, women's basketball does not generate any revenue. But just taking into account powerhouses like Connecticut, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Baylor, etc., I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe they're generating some revenue. But to think that they should have a weight room or training facilities that are commensurate with or even comparable to the men is a joke. You should not expect that. But because of Title IX, that once again feeds into the woman's natural state of entitlement based on what they believe that they should be receiving from men. And men are constantly fostering this false notion of what a woman deserves because modern day men refuse to tell the woman the truth. And it's holding everybody back.
The beautiful weight situation going on in Indianapolis. All the teams can go in there. Look at all the dumbbells, the weights, the machines, the racks, the benches, everything you could dream of. This is what the women's gym setup looks like in San.
Now, that's probably about what they deserve. If we were to make an evaluation based on how much money they generate, a nice little dumbbell rack. Now, brothers, let me say this. If we were to take an adequate or an accurate inventory of the value of each and every male basketball player, if they were to be audited per se, if these major basketball conferences were to have each and every team and each and every player on that team audited for their value and their worth, I'm sure that the top players, their value would be calculated in the millions. And they're not getting paid at all. The real storyline here is that the cash cows of the NCAA are not getting paid at all. Not that women are not receiving the same benefits as the men, because for all intents and purposes, they don't deserve any. Like they don't deserve anywhere near the benefits of the men. The men are generating all the money. The least that you could do is give them adequate equipment to train, because if one of them were to go down due to an injury from not being able to train appropriately, it's going to cost the school a lot more than if a prominent or a top women's player were to go down. That's the reason why all they get is a dumbbell rack, because they're not worth much. And I'm not saying that as a person. I'm saying that as a player, when they're properly audited or when they're properly evaluated based on how much revenue they're going to generate overall for their school or for their conference or what have you. It's just basic economics.
And as you can imagine, people are furious about this. The person who originally posted the photo is Allie Kirshner. She's the performance coach for the Stanford basketball team, and she was really upset. She's like, look at the way the men get treated versus the women. This is completely unfair. It's ridiculous. And then WNBA superstar Sabrina Ionescu, who is the #1 pick of the...
That's a man, baby. I think I spoke about this person. I may have covered this person in the Kobe Bryant alchemical funeral ceremony, the coverage for that ritual that I did back when Kobe Bryant was ritualistically removed. And I noted that in my view, this person here is a quote-unquote male to female transgender. Will not surprise me at all. Of course, everything that I'm saying is alleged, just my perspective. But when I look at the thickness of the neck and things of that nature, I'm sorry, it's a man, baby.
20 draft out of Oregon. She's a big star. Babcock, you were saying she's tight with the Bryant family, right?
Very tight. She had a relationship with Kobe. She's tight with the Bryant kids. So, yeah, really tight with the Bryant family.
Yeah, point being that she's a pretty powerful person. And
oh, hell yeah, that's a man, baby. Looking like Chris Farley. In a van down by the river.
Saw the post and escalated, and all of a sudden things started to snowball, and everybody began to take notice and say, whoa, wait a second, this is a little ridiculous here, that the women are subjected to this crappy gym setup and the men get treated like gods over there. Look at...
I wonder why no one complains when you have female figure skaters that get paid more than men, or why no one complains when you have female runway models that get paid more than male runway models. Why is that? Men don't complain in those fields or in those arts. Could it be because those men understand that the women generate more money? That Tom Brady's wife, Gisele Bündchen, generates more money than Tyson Beckford, so she's going to get paid more? Tyson Beckford does not complain about that. But when it comes to the men who blatantly and obviously generate more money than the women, especially in the NCAA basketball tournament, this is supposed to be an issue. The real issue is they have the money to pay for all of this equipment, but they don't have the money to give these men a stipend for while they're there at college. It's the men who are really getting robbed, not the women.
Well, the NCAA has responded. They put out a statement saying, quote, we acknowledge that some of the amenities teams would typically have access to have not been available inside the controlled environment. In part, this is due to the limited space, and the original plan was to expand the workout area once additional space was available later in the tournament. So basically, they're saying the reason that the women got stuck with this crappy gym is because there were limitations when it came to space.
Yeah, see, I don't appreciate that, because once again, that's another lie that's really meant to reinforce the woman's natural proclivity for delusion, her preference for delusion. You have to tell the woman the truth so that she can finally come into an understanding of why things are the way that they are. The NCAA cannot do that because they have to keep a lie alive that they agreed to 50 years ago with that Title IX bullshit.
Guess what? University of Oregon star player Sedona Prince blew that theory out of the water with a new video that she put up. Take a look.
I got something to show y'all. So for the NCAA March Madness, the biggest tournament in college basketball for women, this is our weight room. Let me show y'all the men's weight room.
You can tell this broad been hanging around a lot of lesbian black female basketball players. Talking about, let me show y'all. No, don't show y'all nothing. Speak like how your parents raised you to speak. Let me show you. No, let me show y'all nothing. Okay? Looking like Kelly Olynyk. Tell me this broad don't look like Kelly Olynyk from the Miami Heat.
Now, when pictures of our weight room got released versus the men's, the NCAA came out with a statement saying that it wasn't money, it was space that was a problem. Let me show y'all something else. Here's our practice court, right? And then here's that weight room. And then here's all this extra space.
Well, Sedona Prince, let me ask you a question. How much money are you paying the University of Oregon to attend classes there? I'm pretty sure you're going there for free because you received a basketball scholarship. The reason why they could afford to pay you a basketball scholarship to go to school for free is because of the amount of money that men's basketball generates. So maybe you should be a little bit happier, because I'm pretty sure that your overall value as a player, based on how much money you generate for the school, will not even be enough to pay for your education. Now, conversely, when we speak about the men's side, not only do most of those cats generate more than enough money to go to school for free, they generate enough money for themselves to go to school for free, and everyone in their damn family line to go to school for free.
If you're upset about this problem, then you're a part of it.
So
that's normal wokeity bullshit and empty rhetoric. If you don't agree with me, then you're part of the problem and you need to go. You need to be canceled. No, sir or ma'am or whatever the hell you are. That's about what you deserve based on, how much money you guys generate. That one dumbbell rack right there.
Where we are now, the NCAA has now said that they dropped the ball in this whole situation, and they
didn't drop shit. They didn't drop a goddamn thing. They probably don't even deserve that damn dumbbell rack.
Correct the situation as soon as possible, in part because this became such a massive national story. All these big stars.
It wasn't that damn big. It floated around for a couple of days. Everybody acted outraged, and it's pretty much been swept under the bed. It's water under the bridge, whatever term you want to use.
Both men and women in and out of basketball, right? NFL stars, mainstream celebrities. People were saying, like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, all the simps and the toxically feminine women got roused up. I saw Shannon Sharp said something about it on his page. But the funny thing about it is, I would like to know the last time that Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp covered women's NCAA basketball on their show. I don't think that they've spoken not even one bit about it in the 5 years that they've been on the air. I've never heard them cover women's NCAA basketball. They never even covered the WNBA. So there's no appeal to those sports. So let's not try to act incensed when there's a disparity, a so-called disparity between the amenities for the men as opposed to the amenities for the women.
Believe that this is how the women are treated. And so the NCAA has now vowed to rectify this and give the women a fully functional gym that's equal to the men's gym by tomorrow morning. But Renee, I got to ask, as somebody...
And of course, that's going to come out of the men's budget.
Spent a lot of time around college basketball now in the WNBA. How do you feel about this, seeing that there's, that this is being exposed and that the NCAA is going to change here?
So for me, I'm so glad that everyone is now starting to pay attention to things. That's what I see, because the NCAA men's tournament and the NCAA women's tournament, they've never been on par as far as luxuries and as far as swag bags. That was one of the issues too. And as far
right, but why would they? Why would they be evaluated on an even playing field when you guys don't generate the amount of money that the other side does? It makes no sense whatsoever. But because she's talking to two scared simps, both of them understand what I understand. It's just that they're only going to say it in their minds. So she's allowed to continue to speak things, quote unquote, into existence that are not meant to be spoken into existence. And eventually it's just going to, it's going to affect the economic program or the economic paradigm of college basketball, and they're going to have to auto-correct it behind the scenes, because there's no way that you can afford to spend millions of dollars on an enterprise that's not generating any money, which is the case with women's NCAA basketball as well as the professional WNBA, aka the Women's National Basketball Association.
Amenities. The NCAA men have always pretty much had more than the women, so I love that right now everything's being
That's like saying the NFL players have better training facilities than the Women's Lingerie Football League. Well, no shit.
Forefront. We said it a lot of times, this is the year of the woman.
Is it? Why is this the year of the woman for? I thought this was supposed to be the time period of quote-unquote racial reckoning, right? When that situation happened with George Floyd, supposedly the liberal black female and the other races said that they were fighting for equality. But for the most part, all I've heard them speak about is women's equality and LGBTQ rights. That's why I always tell you, brothers, they simply use the so-called black men as an infantry for their Luciferian propaganda and, to try to establish protocols that are going to assist every demographic except for the heterosexual black men. But they need you because we generate and create the most natural energy of any group, any strata, any demographic on the planet.
I'm glad that people are paying attention, and now you can see the swag bags that are showing there. It was a dramatic difference. There were dramatic differences that happen every single year. I'm glad we're talking about it this year, but they happen every single year. I'm glad the NCAA now, you saw the first statement was like, oh yeah, there wasn't space. And then the players was like, oh yeah, well, what's this? And now they're like, yeah, we dropped the ball. NCAA, you dropped the ball. And so.
Well, they dropped the ball because they agreed to a lie decades ago. And now they have to keep that lie. They have to perpetuate it. Because you, as a female, Renee Montgomery, you gravitate towards lies. And in order to, to satiate you, to satisfy you, to make you think that they're actually moving towards what they have to allege they're moving towards to keep you happy and, keep you gratified and satisfied, they have to continuously say something that is not real and that it's not true. Because, no, they're not just going to, create a state-of-the-art training facility for the women and leave it be. They're going to find a way to cut corners behind the scenes because they know that, when when the IRS evaluates their revenue, everything has to equal out to zero, while they themselves have to make the most money that they can while they can. That's what any great business entity does. So they're not just going to spend $800,000, $900,000, $1 million on a training facility for women, and you think that they're not going to find some other way to cut costs.
The point, I just hope that moving forward, this isn't just a quick fix. This needs to be a whole overhaul of how things are done to make sure that there's some parity there.
Yeah, they should have just been honest from the get-go and not lied. They should have just said, I believe that if we gave them truth serum, they would say, hey, the men make us a ton of money and we don't really care about the women. That's what I think.
That's somewhere along the right line, but if you gave them truth serum, they say a whole lot of shit. They say these bitches don't make us any money. The men do. The men make us so much money that we're robbing them blind and making women believe that we're robbing them, even though they're basically a charity case. Once again, just the fact that they're allowed to put on uniforms and play on wooden floors with 10-foot hoops to mimic the men is a great stride for them because nobody watches that shit. So once again, if the NCAA were given real truth serum, they probably would have said something like, we never should have agreed to give these bitches access to professional sports or college sports or anything like that 45 years ago anyway. And if they don't like it, they can kiss our ass. Shit, when people get truth serum, they're going to give you the whole truth.
It probably feels they should have just been honest. Don't lie.
So on that point, Babcock, I think
everybody says that shit. You should have just been honest, don't lie, until you give them that truth. And then their whole facial expression changes.
the reason that the women generate less money than the men is because of the way that they're promoted and covered. I think
another alibi. But this is something that wokey males on TV, they have to act like they believe that stupid shit. Because they have to keep a false conversation going. If they were to speak the actuality of the reason why women are not marketed, it's because no one has interest in what they're doing. Women's basketball has been around now professionally since the mid-90s. If it was meant to grow, it would have been grew already. A lot of the alumni from the WNBA, they love to say things like, well, if you look at the NBA, they didn't really pop off until the early 80s and they've been around since the late 40s. Right, but that was back in the era where people had televisions and they only had 4 channels. And for the most part, NBA basketball was not even on TV until the mid to late 50s. And then on top of that, you had a lot of societal upheaval that occurred from the late 50s all the way until the mid to late 70s. Once the bus riots or the busing riots for the school children started to subside in the late 1970s, you started to see the popularity of the NBA skyrocket with the introduction of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And of course, they utilized TV for that. The women have been on TV for decades now. Nobody wants to watch that shit. It's an inferior product, bottom line. And then on top of that, there's no appeal. There's no reason for men to watch it because the women are not feminine. And for the most part, they're not attractive. So what would be the reason why men would watch women's basketball unless they're a basketball junkie or they're trying to raise their daughter to be in the next generation of lesbians in the WNBA? What would really be that reason? Like Kobe Bryant was a basketball junkie, so he was raising his daughter to be a male, to be a man in the WNBA. Women don't watch the WNBA because heterosexual women If they even watch sports, they want to watch sports dominated by men so that they can get titillated, they can get turned on. The audience for the WNBA and women's basketball is very small because they marginalize it due to their confrontational stances towards men, whether it be outright or subliminal. They always seem to be trying to attack men in some way. So they're going to alienate heterosexual men. They're going to alienate homosexual men. They're going to alienate heterosexual women. So basically the only demographic that's left are the lesbians. And that's the predominant that's their predominant audience.
For a long time, the way that women's basketball was covered was like, oh, this is cute, right?
Yeah.
And instead,
100%.
it should be focusing on these tremendous, incredibly talented athletes.
They're good athletes for women. That's the problem. You could take the best WNBA team, and if you put them out there on the floor with the best AAU boys team, 14 years old, I promise you, if they play 7 games, the women might win. They might win 1 game out of those 7 games. Maybe. If you put the best WNBA team out there on the basketball floor against one of the top high school male basketball teams in a state, not even in the country, but in a state, they get blown out every game. Blown off the floor every game. So once again, what are you asking people to do? You're asking them to watch an inferior product with women who, for the most part, are not physically alluring or attractive.
Balling out every single night, and put that same energy that you're using towards putting compilations and highlight reels about the men to promote the men.
And Ev, something else. So this year is the first year that ABC will be covering some of the women's games. I think there's going to be a huge influx of new fans.
No, there will not. There will not be no damn huge influx of new fans to watch broads who look like this play basketball. You can keep trying to sell that bullshit all you want. Every 3 years, they keep trying to sell people on how there's going to be a major breakthrough in women's sports, and there never is.
Probably never even seen it before, and now it's on mainstream media. I'm calling some of the NCAA women's tournament. I have one of those ABC.
Look at this broad over here, number 22. This is the exact reason why no one's really interested in this silly shit. She's trying to do a muscle pose like a man. This is why people are not interested in this. Women's sports, for the most part, I mean, there are certain sports that are more feminine than others, like women's tennis. But like women's basketball is really just a platform or a mechanism for the woman to showcase for all the world to see her penis envy.
That's what has to happen. Then those dollars will follow, to Babcock's point.
Yeah.
This is our weight room.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. So peace.